Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Think Great Experience. I'm so glad you could join us today. I am very excited about our show today. I'm excited to introduce our guest because occasionally as you go through the journey of life, you meet people and you have a connection and there's a kindred spirit. And even though our companies offer different products or services, there's a kindred spirit that I feel I share with Josh after meeting him for the very first time. And that's impacting people. And so I'm very excited to introduce to you the founder of Kind Lips, and also just a great person giving back and making an impact, Josh Neumann. Josh, welcome to the Think Great Experience.
Eric, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you because I love what you're doing in the world. I love your vision. I love your desire to impact people. And especially since a lot of those people are children, which we'll get to, and we'll talk about your focus in the classroom, but you have an amazing name for your company, Kind Lips. I love it. Can you tell us a little bit about Kind Lips and what made you decide to start your company?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the compliment on the name, and I have to give all the credit to my mother, and I'll get to that. But yeah, so honestly, I was in a different career. I was in a real estate and a finance career for about 12 years and loved it for 10 of those years. And after about that 10th year, I was finding myself not fulfilled anymore. And I kind of started sitting on the couch and questioning, okay, if I don't like what I'm doing now, what am I going to do? Never having a 9-to-5 job. I knew that I didn't want to go work for anybody else. And so I kind of sat around and was sitting on my couch one night and thinking about what can I do? What's my skill set? And wanting to start a business. And I looked down at my hand and I was twirling a lip balm and realized that I've always liked lip balm and used it probably more than I should. And I was like, well, it can't be rocket science to make a lip balm that actually works well. And I don't have to apply 20 times a day. I'd like to apply it once or twice a day. And so in that, this is like a 5-minute self-talk, conversation. I was like, I'm going to start a lip balm company. And I was like, well, no one's going to want to buy Josh's lip balm. So how can I do it different? And so I was thinking through, and I grew up with a spiritual background. And I was like, nobody really markets towards like the spiritual side, the Christian side of stuff. And so I was like, I remember there was a YouTube video I'd seen about a week or two prior, and it was this Japanese scientist, Dr. Emoto, and he did this study, and he took these 3 glass jars and had them all sanitized the same way, and he put a scoop of rice in each jar, and he put a cup of water in each jar, covered them up. And he put tape on each of the jars, and he put them on a desk, and he wrote on one, he called love, the other jar he called hate, and the third jar he didn't call anything. And he time-lapsed this whole video, and for 30 days, he walked up to the jars of rice, and one he said, I love you. The next one he'd say, I hate you. And the third one, he'd just stand next to it. And so after the end of 30 days, the jar he said, I love you to, the rice stayed white and looked healthy. The jar he said, I hate you, the rice had turned black and moldy, and the one he didn't say anything to, it was just kind of on the moldier side. And that was, and so I remembered that in that self-talk. And so I decided I was going to call it Blessed Lips. And it was just going to be like prayed over, blessed, had positive energy put into it. And that Dr. Emoto in that study, and that's been repeated multiple times. And by no means is it accurate 100% of the time, but more so than not, it ends up being the representation of what happens with the rice. And it was that physical representation of how powerful our words are and or the energy is. And I know when I go up to somebody and I say something to them positive, they will sit up straighter, their cheeks will flush if you give them a compliment. Right. Or if you say something negative, they kind of hunch over and feel, or they react in a negative way back. And then obviously people that are kids in general, when they're avoided and they don't get any love or attention, then they just kind of curl up. And or even muscles, when you don't give muscles attention, they get atrophy, and so there's a lot of different examples of that. So anyways, I was going to call this Blessed Lips, and I was going to market it towards more the spiritual side, people that might believe in that energy has power. And so I was like all pumped about it. I'm like, great idea, Blessed Lips. And a few hours later, my mom gives me a call to talk about some family stuff. And we're on the phone for about 30 minutes. And the end of the call, I was like, hey, I got a great idea. I'm going to start this lip balm company. And I'm sure, with the phone silent, I'm like, I'm gonna call it Blessed Lips, and told her, and the conversation went like this. After I got to telling her, she was like, "You're gonna be great at whatever you want to do. I gotta go." And I was a little bit like, "Oh man, that was pretty harsh." Like that wasn't.
Okay, she was the first one you told.
She was the first one I told.
Okay.
And I was like, man, I thought this was such a great idea, and I got to go pretty much. And so go out, get off the phone, and go about my night, and end up going to sleep. And the next morning, my phone starts ringing at 6 a.m. and I grab it and look at it, and it's my mom calling. And I thought, oh crap, like, why is she calling? Something's wrong. And that wasn't normal for her to call that early. And so I answered the phone, asked her if everything's okay. And she said it was. And she's like, but I had the most vivid dream I've ever had in my entire life. And my mom's a spiritual person. She's always having dreams and that sort of stuff. So I knew I knew there was something special about it. And she said, in my dream, you were about 5 years old. And she's like, your sister Aubrey, who's 2 years older than me, she's like, you guys got in this massive fight. And in the dream, you said some really mean things to her. And she's like, and for your punishment for being so mean, she's like, I made you sit down at a desk and write sentences. And she said, like, I was at this old desk in an old school building, and I was like the only desk in there, and she's standing over my shoulder, and I had to write, the law of kindness is on my lips. And I had to repeat that sentence 50 times. And so she said she's standing behind me, and every time I wrote the words kind and lips, they flew off the page and hit her in the face. And so I still didn't know why, what was the purpose of this dream. And she goes, I think if you're going to start this lip balm company, you're supposed to call it Kind Lips. And I got the chills, and I was like, you're right. That's what I'm supposed to do with this next season of life. And so that's how the name came from my mom's like really vivid dream. And so got the phone, and I was like, she redeemed herself from the conversation the night before. And so next thing I did is I went to GoDaddy and I typed in kindlips.com, and it was there and available. So picked that up for, $6.99, and it was like, all right, now I got to figure out how to make lip balm. And
there's your first step, right? You got to get mom's blessing and then get your website.
That was it. Yeah. And then I was like, well, now I know what I'm going to do. Now I have to figure out how to do it. So that was a whole nother journey of, making lip balm in my kitchen at home and going through all that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you well, first of all, hats off to your mom. I mean, I have trouble remembering what I dreamt about the night before, let alone to have such a vivid dream. So it's great that she has such great recall on her dreams, but to have those words pop out is huge. And the fact that you went with that, launched it, is incredible. And I think there's a lot of people listening right now that maybe at that phase, I would say, where they, like you were in real estate, you've kind of wrapped up your tour of duty in real estate. You're at the point you want to do something new. Maybe there's some people listening right now. They want to do something new. Maybe they have an idea floating around. Maybe they even have a name. Maybe they've even gotten a website. But for you to create something that's actually applied onto the body, in my opinion, that's kind of mind blowing. I'm thinking there's so many steps. It must be very complex to create it and get it approved. Can you kind of go through that mindset? Like once you have the website, how do you create a final product that now, I mean, you sent a packet of them home for me to share with my wife and daughter, and my daughter was already using them. She had vanilla lemon in her bag. She's like, oh, I love Kind Lips. And she showed me. Of course, she took the whole packet, but she still loved it. So how do you go from this idea phase to the execution phase? What steps did you have to take to get it to the final approval phase?
Yeah, well, there was before starting Kind Lips, and real estate was a very good training ground for entrepreneurship. I had you're in there doing your own sales, you're doing your own accounting, you're doing your own marketing. So I had a lot of that experience, or at least got to play around with it, and kind of starting a business in that sense. And so I had to listen to my own advice. And I remember there was a friend of mine who I'd met with probably 6 months before starting Kind Lips, and he was talking about doing some home renovations. And he knew how to do the work, but he was in his own house, and he's like, I just don't know where to start. And I've gone in this bedroom 3 or 4 times, and it just keeps looking the same. And he's like, I just sit in there and drink a beer and listen to some music, and nothing really has happened yet. And I was like, okay. So tonight you have to promise me when you go home, I said, you got a hammer, right? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, just take the hammer and throw it through the wall. And I was like, that's it. And then you're going to figure out what to do. And so he sent me a photo that night, in this wall that he'd been wanting to like remove. The whole thing was down. And he's like, all I had to do was start. And so when I was like thinking about Kind Lips, it reminded me of that conversation I had with my friend. And so I was like, all right, just got to start and keep momentum going. And so, I had the website, and then I was like, okay, like, what lip balms do I like? And so I bought every lip balm I could find, and then just started going through this. I just kept trying to keep momentum going of one next step, and never stop and never give up trying new stuff. And so I went and I wrote down every ingredient. And then I was like, well, I know I want this product to be natural and organic. So if it's going to be, Kind Lips, it has to be kind for your lips.
Right.
And so I'm like, I have to make it healthy. And so really just kept following one step at a time, and not knowing where I was going to end up, and trusting that this process would get me to somewhere different than I was the day before.
So you kind of took the approach of it's like being Thor. You throw the hammer.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the Avengers movie, but there was a point in one of the Avengers movies where he was in a room drinking beer, and then he had to get his hammer back. So I don't know. I mean, it's almost like you become I like where you're going with this, because I think a lot of people may feel like they're in that room having the beer. I'm in that phase, and it can be as simple as you have to take that first action.
It is. It's just getting a little bit of momentum going,
Yeah.
and I think that's the hardest part for most people that I've encountered that want to start a business or do something that has some sort of risk involved.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, find a way to mitigate the risk, but also like you just have to take that little step in faith and see what happens.
People have asked me, because I've written a number of books, and they'll say, well, how do you start? I think that's such a common question for everything. Maybe somebody wants to get in shape. Where do I start? Maybe somebody wants to write a book. Where do I start? I always say I try and write a good introduction. If I can create a few pages that introduces the concept, and I can share it with a few people and they get excited about it, I probably have a book there. And so that's a starting point for me, although I'm sure other authors have different starting points. But starting a business, from the ground floor up, if you will, it can be intimidating. So I like the idea, you create that name, you create that website, you just start taking that first step. I mean, there you are buying all these products. And then through that process, you made yours different than the rest of them. You have a unique product. And that doesn't happen overnight. What were the time frames here? You had the idea, your mom blesses you with this great name, Kind Lips, which is awesome. What was the time frame from, you've got the website, if you will, to the time where you have your first product for sale?
Honestly, it was probably about 9 months. So it went really, really quick for me.
That's fast.
But I'm type A. When I get focused on something, like I'm all in, and at that point I kind of ditched everybody in my life, and I was like, all right, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I felt really called to start this company. And so I kept my day job and was doing that, but also I wasn't going out on the weekends or spending time with friends, and wasn't going out to dinners, and, being in that real estate environment. And I was a top 10 realtor in Minneapolis and had a very successful business in that. So I had quite a bit to do, but it was like I cut out all the social aspects of it and was just focused on this. And honestly, with that momentum, taking those next steps, it was always really easy to be focused on, okay, what's the next step? And I never really got caught up on, I think at that time it's easy to fantasize about like, oh, I want to go on Shark Tank, or I want to go be in, Target, or I want to be in this store. And then it seems overwhelming when you think of how to get there. And I was like, okay, I just got to figure out, I got the product figure out, I got the formula. And then I'm like, okay, now I have to figure out, who's going to make this. I can't just, if I want to like sell this, I can't just make it all in my kitchen. So then I have to find a manufacturer. And then it's like, well, now I have to create a label, because if I'm on the tube, and, and then I had to build the website and go through all that. So it's just kind of one step at a time of, thinking of everything that needs to be done. And that kept me from being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And one of the lessons that I learned for me was I was really good at continuing to keep momentum. But when I was doing something, I want to do it really well. And I remember once I had the manufacturer, I had the product done, and I'm like, I was working on the label. And I worked on the label for at least a month. And I wouldn't give a final clearance to like my manufacturer to print the label because I kept tweaking stuff. And I remember I had a friend and talking to her, and she's not in business. And honestly, it was one of the best things she's ever said. And I wasn't expecting it from her. And she's like, well, why? She goes, how many iPhones are there? And at the time there was 7, I think. And I said, there's 7 iPhones. And she goes, well, if Apple continues to put out new iPhones and make improvements, why does your lip balm label have to be perfect? And it was like a mic drop
Wow.
moment. And I was like,
Wow.
right. And I called the manufacturer the next day. I was like, let's make this. And I've made so many changes to the label ever since.
That's so deep.
It's exhausting, but it was exactly what I needed to hear in that moment. And it was really beautiful and helped me to move forward
mean,
and not just get stuck on perfection.
At that point, she didn't throw the hammer through the wall. She threw you through the wall. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, but I think sometimes that's, and I don't know about for you, but obviously you're doing it, but when you bounce ideas off people, sometimes they can say some things that just puts things in the right perspective,
Yeah.
especially when you can almost feel a little stuck on something,
And so much of life and business is all about perspective, because our capabilities aren't any different, today than they were yesterday. But what we believe that we can achieve and what we believe we can do from a new perspective shift is fascinating and encouraging.
So this market, the lip balm market, and I can speak as an authority because I have a teenage daughter, so that I know one drawer I can open up is filled with lip balm, and she can never seem to have enough. This is a pretty big market out there right now for lip balm, big and growing, from what I understand too. Is that correct?
Yeah. Surprisingly, I think last year I was told by one of our distributors that lip balm is one of the few categories on shelf space that's actually increasing, that they're seeing a higher number of sales from. So they don't have an explanation why that is. My assumption is that it's a very cheap, overall product, that you can pay $5 for a really good lip balm and it lasts for 3 or 4 months. And it's just kind of a luxury, quote unquote, luxury item that is very cheap.
So where is Kind Lips at right now? Where is the business? Tell us a little bit about the products that are available. Where do you stand right now?
Yeah, so we are, the only products we have at this point on able to buy are lip balms. And with the name being Kind Lips, the intention of the brand is each tube is a behavior modification tool. So each tube represents a reminder to speak kind words to yourself and to the people around you. So a lot of our marketing is about that, just having that little tangible item that reminds you that you have an opportunity to say something kind to somebody around you or yourself. And then, so then we donate 20% of our profits also go to anti-bullying and mental health organizations. So that's just that's the essence of the company, a really high quality premium product at a very affordable price. And knowing that the name is Kind Lips, I did not want to do any other products that don't have to do with lips.
Right.
Because, I'm not doing this yes, I want to make money, and we have to make money to donate to the causes and live, but the idea of it is to create a culture shift in how we treat each other and how we treat ourselves. And, I think once we see kindness continue to grow, that'll impact so many other areas of life that we'll probably talk about. And I'll go back to the product. So most of it is, we sell a lot on our website, Amazon. We're in probably 4,000 boutiques across the country. A lot of different grocery stores on the East and West Coast, kind of the natural organic stores. And we haven't moved into big box or anything like that yet. There's kind of a process, and I don't think that we're on the verge of that. We've actually been having conversations with some big box and trying to figure out, are we ready for that? And as I journey through this business, there isn't a cliff notes for this, and I definitely don't know what I'm doing. So every day it's, wake up and put my pants on and show up and try and figure out, fix any of the mistakes I made the day before and learn.
It's interesting. I love when I meet with entrepreneurs and business owners that give back. And that's a big thing for me, is to give back. And, we talked about, we have a foundation that we give back to military spouses because we're intimately connected with that veteran community as a veteran myself. What made you focus on giving back whether it's on the mental health side or the bullying side? What made you choose those?
So when I was a little kid, I'd, we had chores to do every week, and I got paid $1 a week that was my allowance. And out of that dollar, when we go to church on Sundays, I always had to bring a dime in and put that 10 cents in the offering plate. And so as I grew up and continued to be challenged by my parents to give back. And when I was, working in real estate, I made the commitment right away to just give 10% of my gross income to church or charity. And as I grew in my business and became more successful, I was able to afford to give more than 10%. And I found myself doing that, but not consistently. And I really wanted to challenge myself to be even more generous. And so when I was starting Kind Lips, I was like, all right, we're going to donate 20% right off the top. Like, I just gotta, like, that's part of the business. If we don't make any money anywhere else, but we're donating, like, great. And so that was where the 20% came from. Just really wanted to challenge myself personally to be more generous. And as I was thinking through, and I knew what the intention of Kind Lips is, being kind, I was like, what is the opposite of being kind? And it was being mean. And obviously, like, social media bullying and a lot of bullying was coming up. And so that's where it's like, all right, like, we're gonna essentially put our money where our mouth is. And if we can help prevent people from being bullies and teach new behaviors, then they're inherently going to be more kind. And so try and win on both ends. So,
and that's such a huge topic these days, bullying. We talked about it when we met, and it was happening when we were younger, but not everything that would be considered bullying today was considered bullying back then.
Yeah.
They just kind of glossed over it. But this is a huge thing. And I agree with you. I think that the social media side really magnifies the impact of bullying these days.
Yeah. And I, even on my own personal journey of doing this business and just, even outside of this business and about, learning about life and who's the man what man I want to be and what do I want to do and how do I see myself. And I realized that, my identity I wasn't kind to myself. And I didn't really see myself in a light that was great. And it was way easier for me to walk on the sidewalk and give somebody a compliment and be kind to other people and or put a front on. And I still remember, it was over COVID. And I remember going to the bathroom and I was washing my hands and I realized I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. And it wasn't because anything, it was just like I couldn't tell myself that I love myself. And I knew in that moment, I'm like, man, Kind Lips is, if I'm going to be doing this, like, I have to learn how to be kind to myself. And that's probably been the toughest journey, toughest part of this business is, I don't want to practice something that I'm not willing to preach, or I'm not willing to preach about something I'm not willing to practice. And so I started like goofy, standing in the mirror, writing myself Post-it notes and doing that sort of deal. And what I've learned of that journey of learning to be kind to myself, it's the kindness I've been able to share with people around me is 10x more authentic than what it was.
Well, I think when you lead by example, like you're doing, people want to emulate that. And I'll bet you a lot of the people that are bullying don't love themselves either. There's probably this part of them that they can't look themselves in the mirror either. And then they just take it out on other people. So what you're doing with Kind Lips is amazing. It's spreading that wave, that kindness factor. And I don't know, there maybe never been a time like this on our planet where we need it more than right now. But you have a program, you take Kind Lips into the classroom. So you're being active about it. You're not just suggesting that people are kind, you're showing them ways. Can you talk a little bit about your classroom project that you've done?
Yeah. And I wish, again, another thing with this business that I wish I could take credit for, because I can't. And actually my degree, I went to school to be a special education teacher. So the school system was always something that my dad was a teacher. And so I grew up, that being an example of myself and something I want to be involved in. And until I student taught, and then I realized I didn't want to be part of the school system. I can't be no more bells anymore. And so, but I remember it was soon after I'd started Kind Lips. And at that time, my the world headquarters was in the second bedroom of my apartment. And so I'm up there one day and went to check the website, and we had an order, and it was for 33 tubes. And that was the largest order I'd had at that point. I was really pumped about it. And so I sent the order out, and about 3 months later, a little bit over, I get an email, and I still remembered the woman's name who placed that order, because I think that was probably still the largest order that we'd had at that time. She wanted to have a phone call. And so we get on the phone, and she said that she was a third grade teacher, and she heard about our tubes of lip balm, and she gave one to each of the kids in her classroom, told them they had to, keep them in their desk. And she said that every time that they used a lip balm, they had to give another classmate a compliment, and she did like a curriculum around it. And so she said it was one of the most behaviorally challenged classrooms that she's ever had in 18 years of teaching. And she said 3 months after implementing the kind lips, she said it's one of the most well-behaved classrooms that she's ever had. And she said students are going out of their way to give other students compliments, and they're feeling how good it is to give a compliment, how good it is to receive a compliment. And she said the other interesting thing is she uses the name Johnny. She's like, if Johnny's being mean or doing something he's not supposed to, the kids weren't telling Johnny that he was being mean, but they were telling him that he needs to put his kind lips on. And so it's a real easy, non defensive, doesn't create any kind of animosity to say, hey, you should put your kind lips on. Johnny would learn to self-reflect in real time and learn what behaviors he was doing, and then also really correct those in a real time. And she said it's been really fun to see the dramatic shift. And so I got off the phone with her, and I was like, well, if this works for her classroom, why can't this work for every classroom and or adults or wherever? That was the whole idea. It was just that it was probably some of the affirmation I needed to just know that this was actually having an impact and making a difference. And so that's where the school program was born from that.
So what's it look like now? What if there's teachers listening or people in the academia world? What does that look like for them now if they were to reach out and say, hey, we want kind lips in the classroom? What does that mean?
Yeah, so we have a program on our website. So there's two options right now. You can, a parent or grandparent can go on there and buy it just for their child's classroom. And so that teacher gets a box, and in the box it has directions to implement it, but it's real simple. We want to make it super easy for teachers to implement. And so you get the tubes of lip balm in there. There's some cards in there where the kids have to practice. They have to write a kind sentence about themselves. And then also another card where they have to write a kind sentence about somebody else in the classroom. So we really want them to have to think about that and actually put it on paper. There's a video that goes along with it that shows how kindness impacts other people. Really cute video. Some lesson plans that go along with it that the teachers can choose from and or implement their own. One of them is a teacher has a box, and they have every kid in the classroom come and she says in the box, or he says in the box, there's a picture of her favorite student. So the students walk up one by one, have to look in the box, and it's a mirror. So they get to look at themselves. And so just real cute, self-affirming lesson plans like that. Yeah. And then there's, some of the poster and some of that typical stuff that goes along with it. And all of it is designed to really use the tube of lip balm as an anchor to everything that they use that day, to really remember that it's about speaking kind words, so that when they're using that lip balm, a month later, that they remember the day that they got it. And then
just having that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, at the end of the program, there is a letter that the school sends home to the families. And that letter is, I think, the most impactful part. So what that letter does is says, parent, your student got this tube of lip balm. It reflects the school's values about treating each other with respect and kindness. But also it goes in and asks some parents some questions about, have they had a conversation with their kids about the power of their words? Have they talked to their kids about being bullied? And so there's 5 or 6 questions that ask them. So that way the parents actually get involved in this self-reflection standpoint too, because mom and dad are working all day. They're probably not thinking about asking those questions. And it's just that little prompt to have that conversation with their kids. And, we know that the parents need to have, studies show that parents being involved in their kids' life and asking those questions, that's going to be what makes an impact in school. That's what's, that one teacher can't do that for 30 students.
Well, it's interesting just to have that word association, put on your kind lips. to get people to shift their thinking, and kids especially. I mean, you think about how many schools are throughout this country that could benefit from this. Just as we're talking, and my grandson is, in kindergarten, and I'm thinking, geez, they could use this. Is there an age limit where you recommend it starts at? I mean, can it start in kindergarten or preschool?
Well, I'm going to tell this, my favorite kind lip story to date.
Okay.
And again, this was early on, about 2 years into doing this, and a woman from Michigan reached out through email and set up a time to call, and we're on the phone for about 2 minutes, just doing kind of introductions. And then she says, well, I found your product on Facebook, and I loved it. And then she starts telling me about, she's been married for 33 years. And she said the last 30 years of her life have been the 30 worst years of her life. And she starts talking about her husband. She was like a 60-year-old at that time, like truck driver. She's telling me that he's abusive physically and mentally, and going into some different examples. And she's crying, telling me all this. And she describes this for about 15 minutes. And she says, like, but she said he used lip balm in his semi. And she said what she did is she put the tube of lip balm in his semi. And then when you buy on our website, you get a little card that comes along with it. And the little card says that we believe it's not only our lips that need to be cared for, but the people around us too.
That's great.
And our hope is that every time you apply your kind lips, you'll remember to say something kind. So she put this card in his semi with that lip balm. She said the next 3 weeks, nothing changed, status quo, abusive type behavior. So the fourth week, she didn't get any mean texts from him. And that was the first time she could remember since he had a cell phone, not getting any kind of mean text or having a fight. The 5th week, he texted her a compliment. And she's crying, telling me this. And she said it was the first compliment that she can remember receiving in over 30 years.
Wow.
And she said, it's been some time since that happened. She said, our marriage is better now than it's ever been. And she's like, I honestly believe it's because of the kind lips. And we're crying, and I'm not a crier either. And so I'm like, get off the phone. And I was thinking about it, and I was just like, man, that's so cool. I'm so glad that she cared enough to tell me that. And I thought, I'm like, that tube of lip balm just sat in this guy's semi. And it didn't judge him. It didn't do anything. It just sat there, and he knew what the intention of it was. And it finally just kind of was there long enough, and probably poking him in the side to be like, yeah, you can give a compliment. That's what it's for. And what that snowball effect had on their life is it's phenomenal. I know it's not because it's some magic lip balm. It's just, but we all inherently want to be kind, and we just need that little nudge. And so all that to say, I think if you're a 60-year-old truck driver, if you're an 8-year-old kid, whatever age, I don't think there's anybody too young or too old.
I think that's so powerful. It's interesting as a business coach, I'll go into organizations and I'll ask, what do you want to see your people do more of? And the big answer is always initiative. I just want them to take more initiative. And I always ask, how often do you teach initiative? And they say, well, I don't. And I said, all right, so you have this word you want them to exemplify, but you don't teach it. You don't talk about it. You just expect it. And as you're speaking here, Josh, I just think, kindness, we want it. We kind of expect it, but we don't have that tube, that catalyst for kindness that you've created. So you've brought it to the forefront, and you've started it in a remarkable way, whether it's a truck driver who's 60 years old or, like you said, an 8-year-old child. I mean, when you get feedback like that, I mean, that's got to make a huge impact in you and fuel your fire to do more.
I think that's probably still part of my journey to hear that feedback and truly receive it. I think that was part of my self-love issues is, hear stuff and just, brush it off and not truly let it impact me. So I appreciate you saying that, because I'm in real time right now learning to receive that kind of feedback and truly feel it, because it is something that I should feel, and it does drive me to want to. I would much rather hear stuff like that than hear a big order. I want both, but
the big orders are great. But I think that, well, for starters, I'm going to order that for my grandson's class. I think it'd be perfect. And, you kind of want to hear how he views himself, kind things about himself. I know he would love this program. But, ultimately, I think that for me as a business owner, yes, I love the big speaking engagements or big book orders or all that stuff is great. But sometimes people have asked me, how do you measure success? And I always say, the orders or the speaking engagements, that's great. For me, the metric I use is an unsolicited compliment. In other words, somebody felt compelled to reach out and say that message impacted me, or you enhanced my life. I needed this right now. And early on, it was a little bit, I was kind of like, oh, okay, well, you're welcome. Okay. And then I would go back to doing what I was doing. Now that fuels my fire so much that I don't want anybody to give them to me. I want to earn them. But it is interesting, receiving those compliments. It's a way of being kind to yourself too. And it's nice when somebody says it, but we also have to be able to process it and accept the fact that we're making an impact in somebody's life. And you're making it at such an important level of kindness where people can reevaluate, self-reflect, even at a young age, to impact another human being. You look at that butterfly effect, right? This one small thing, when an 8-year-old or even a 6-year-old truck driver, they make this shift to be kind, the amount of lives they'll touch. I mean, it's geometric kindness. It's not even 1 + 1. It's beyond even multiplication. I mean, the impact is so long lasting from this. It's incredible. I mean, hats off to you for what you're doing and the impact you're making. It's so impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And, the research says that we learn 85 to 90% of what we're going to know our entire lives by the time we're 8 years old. And to even come back to that question earlier, it's like, I think the earlier that we can introduce this idea of kindness and using behavior modification tools to remind us, and people, I think there's I don't even know how accurate it is, but it's like 60 to 70% of the population in the US uses lip balm, which is a significant amount of people. And if we can create an association with using lip balm and giving a compliment, and everyone that's 8 years old and they learn that behavior at that age and they use that for the rest of their lives, like it realistically could impact the way that this country is for generations to come. And it's like we're learning that. So if they can learn that association at a young age, and so that's why I'm really passionate about the school program more than seeing this stuff on the shelves at Target or something, is because I know that I've heard those stories about how the idea of what this tube represents, how that changes not only the person who's putting it on. And if you're going to use lip balm, you might as well use a high quality lip balm. But if you're going to use it and it reminds you to do something good, let's do it.
I mean, it's so amazing. It's incredible. So, with the impact that you're making, what are the goals that you have right now? I know you're a visionary. I know you think into the future. I know you throw that hammer through walls, and you're not afraid to taking steps. But based on where Kind Lips is right now, or Kind Lips in the classroom, what's in the future? What can we expect coming up here in the next year, 3 years, 5 years?
We'll probably have to figure that out together. I had to sit down and I really chose not to have any goals for the first few years of the business. And then I realized, like, again, that was probably a reflection of where I was at in life, and I didn't probably want to disappoint myself and whatnot. And I got really clear that I do believe, and I can look myself in the mirror and say this, I do believe that Kind Lips will be the biggest lip balm company in the world. And I don't think it's going to be even close. And we are absolutely nowhere near there now. We're probably, we're not a blimp on anybody's radar. But the product is second to none from the quality of ingredients. The mission is second to none. And I know that, like, what we're doing as a company, the other day we did a Costco run, and I brought a couple of my employees with, and I'm unloading stuff, and they started going around and pushing carts and putting them into the space around the parking lot. And it was cold out, we're in Minnesota and it's 0 degrees out, and they're walking around pushing the carts into the thing. And we don't have to do that. And we pick up garbage, and it's like, that is the standard that we have as a company. It's like, not only are we being kind to ourselves, to other people, to the environment, we go out and like, we're committed to making a difference wherever we go. And so I think if we build that culture within the company, that's going to reveal itself in our products, in the retail environment, and in the world. And so I think because of that, because of our hearts and what we're truly doing and what we believe, that I think it's going to be an impactful company and that it'll spread.
You know, it's interesting. I'm working on a class right now, and I talk about having this ownership mindset. And it's just one lesson in the class. And I talk about something so powerful, like owning it, owning what your outcomes are. It's kind of the idea here, the concept. And I said it could be as big as maybe creating, as you're saying, like the biggest company in that industry, right? You're the number one, or having these lofty goals at some point. But sometimes it can come down to just picking up trash in your workplace. You know, that mindset. I just wrote that down today, that some of the things I've seen in the world are, you see greatness coming out of people when they make that environment better. I got to have you this time. I know you've helped start a nonprofit. I know you just mentioned, and I don't want this to just blow by the wayside here, but you talked about you and your team pushing the carts or picking up garbage. Where is that mindset coming from? What goes through your head when you're doing that little action that has such a big impact? Because I'm with you on that. And I think this is one of the differentiating values that you bring. But when you talk about picking up garbage, tell me what's going through your mind on that.
But I remember the morning, it was a Sunday morning, and I left my condo in downtown Minneapolis, and I was walking to Starbucks. And it was soon after I'd started Kind Lips, and I didn't even have like the label done, you know, it wasn't in retail, but I had a white tube that I'd made on my stove at home. But I knew the idea of it. And I remember I walked past like an empty beer can and Doritos bag or whatever on the sidewalk. And I was like, I just felt convicted. And I was like, I need to pick that up. If I'm going to create this company, it's about being kind, and I have to be kind to the environment, and I have to live this. And I'd always like had some sort of level of moral standard and all that, but I was like, I have to go above and beyond, and I need to hold myself to a higher standard and a standard of excellence. And it has continued to grow, the standard of excellence, and it's grown outside of work. It's in my health, what I eat, my, physical when I'm working out. And I'm even last Saturday, I had a coffee meeting at Starbucks, and I went to the bathroom, and I walk in there, and the toilet, this is gross, but the toilet needed to be plunged. So I'm like, all right, grab some paper towels, grab the plunger, plunge a toilet, pick up all the paper towels, and like clean up the bathroom, wash my hands, and get out of there. And it was like, I need to leave everything better than how I found it. And I'm just committed to that.
I love that because, okay, I'm going to throw this out there. You're not just giving it lip service. I don't know if there's a tie-in with Kind Lips, but you are actually doing it. You are applying kindness wherever you go. I think a lot of people talk about it. I think a lot of people talk about initiative or judgment or all these great traits. You've got this trait of kindness and you live it. And there might be people listening saying, I don't know if I could plunge somebody else's toilet, but you're convicted, and that's the key. And that's how I know that you will have the absolute biggest lip balm company in the world. People, you're much more than lip balm, even though your lip balm is the best, it's the greatest. What you're doing to enhance the world is what's needed right now. And people will follow you for that. They'll support you for that. They're going to want to help spread the word on that. I know I am. Just hearing you speak about that. I think that sometimes the smallest gestures make the biggest impact, but people just won't do them. They're waiting for that big moment. I'll do this big task, this big project.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be plunging that toilet or picking up that beer bottle or beer can that somebody threw down. You own your environment, you own your destiny. And that's what I love the most about you. I think it's just amazing. I think you're a true inspiration to people. That's why this message has to get out there. It's not just about lip balm, even though it's awesome. And I don't even use lip balm, and I use yours, and it's awesome. I've never liked things on my lips, but yours is incredible. So I'm a huge walking testimonial for you, because I was an avid non-lip balm guy in a house full of women. I just didn't do it. But I'm like, I'm going to try this out, and it's awesome. It is.
That.
Okay, so let's say we got somebody listening right now and they're so inspired by what you're saying, and they say, you know what, I want to make some shifts in my life. I want to go in a new direction. For somebody that wants to achieve new levels of greatness in their life, what would be some starting points for them, or maybe some tips that you have if somebody's just in that process of thinking right now? What would you advise them?
I think it is getting that back to the hammer through the wall thing. I think that it's in all areas of life, it's finding momentum and taking little steps. And I think we all want to be, people today in today's age, it seems like, well, everyone wants to be a millionaire. Everybody wants to go from, middle school to having a Ferrari and, traveling the world, and that whole thing that, really doesn't
Yep.
provide true happiness. That's
Right.
another podcast in itself. But I think it's like taking those small steps. And for me, it was stopping to pick up garbage, and that has transpired into other things, into my physical health and other, but I started there, and it was like just taking small steps. And there's still pieces of garbage that I won't pick up because I don't have gloves with me,
Sure.
and it's like, and I
Yeah.
give myself the grace to not be, I don't have to be perfect, but I'm a human being. I'm in process. I'm consciously pushing myself to try and be better than I was the day before,
Yep.
knowing that I'm never going to be as good as I want to be. And I'm also never going to stop trying to be as good as I want to be. And somehow those all seem to exist in one healthy, space in my head.
And I think that takes a lot of pressure off. When I coach people, I always say, stop striving for perfection and just strive for progress. Just be greater, be better. Self-improvement, get a little bit better each day. There's no real destination, if you will. We're on a journey every day of growing and developing, and I think you believe too in just becoming better, learning more. And I think that's so important. I think people put the pressure on them that they have to have everything. Maybe like you were talking about with your marketing or your the labeling, right? It was this perfection, and all of a sudden, here's this gal that's like, no progress. Boom, let's do it. And what a breakthrough that is. And that takes a lot of pressure off entrepreneurs as they have these big ideas. They can take these small steps.
Right. And I mean, my own personal journey with Kind Lips, I mean, the school program, there's been so many things that have happened in this business that weren't my ideas, and they just kind of come as, it goes. But it starts with me taking a little bit of a risk and putting myself out there and doing it, and you figure it out. And I think there's a lot of people out there that say, wake up and make your bed in the morning, or, fold your laundry. And so there's all sorts of little things that I
Sure.
think steps that people can take to just start feeling what it's like to do something for themselves, and be more focused on like, how can I make the world around me better? How can I make my own life better, as opposed to waiting for somebody else? If I was waiting for somebody else to make my life better, I'd still be waiting.
Yeah, I think so. There's a long waiting line too, by the way. And I think that's the problem. I think that it's people like you, Josh, that are inspiring people to stop waiting and start stepping. And I personally feel, I know, listening to you and having met you and having used the product and knowing what the greater purpose is behind your whole company, I believe that Kind Lips needs to be in every school. I believe that every school and I want to say as early as kindergarten, all the way through to 12th grade, because those seniors can be brutal. I think they all need it. I think there's so much opportunity for us to take this catalyst for kindness and get it into schools. I'm committed, and I'm committed to helping with that mission and also getting it into my grandson's school. I'm super excited about that. And my daughter's high school. I'm going to get it in there too, because I think everybody listening right now knows somebody in the world of teaching, academia, in some area that they can say, hey, for your class, I want to buy this. I'm committed to buying this for the teachers that we know, Josh, because I love what you're doing, and I want to help. I want to help spread that kindness. I want to help get those tubes into those classes and get these children thinking differently every day, because I believe the world can be a greater place. I believe the world can be a kinder place. So I'm gonna do everything I can to help support your mission and what you're striving for.
I appreciate that very much. And just, for anybody out there listening, for that school program, we've done anywhere from a single classroom to entire school systems. And I am more than happy if, there's been times where we've had to donate it and I'll donate it. There's times where, people, generally we charge like $2 a student. And that's kind of what we're doing, like more than a classroom, it's $2 a student, which, some schools can't afford that. And other schools, they could afford $20 a student. So it just really depends. But just to say, I'm willing to work with anybody because my heart, we don't make money on the $2 a student. And so it's like, how do we get this out there? Because I know the impact that it is having. And that's, what I'm learning is really drives me to want to do it.
Josh, I love that there's people in our world like you that put others as a priority and that still believe in people, still believe that we can make a difference, that we can make an impact, and that we can help people to become better and greater. So if somebody's listening right now and they want to find out more about Kind Lips or connect with you, what's the best way for them to find out more, connect with you, reach out?
Go to our website, kindlips.com, or send me a direct email. It's josh@kindlips.com. And again, my commitment is no matter how big this business gets, I will always, I'll always make time to talk to people and connect. And if I have to show up to somebody's school, and I'm willing to do that. Rather have you go there and talk, but if I have to, I will.
It's interesting. I do get to speak with specifically high school students. I'll go in and teach some ideas on goal setting or leadership or communication even. But I'm excited that any chance I get, I'm going to introduce Kind Lips. I think what you're doing is needed. I think it's relevant. I think it's meaningful. And I love the focus that you have, my friend. So I'm in your corner and I'm going to help you to spread the word.
Well, I appreciate you caring enough to put your money where your mouth is and even have me on your podcast and get to, spend time and learn from you. So it's been a pleasure, the little bit of time we've had.
Well, we're going to make a huge impact together. And I know our listeners are going to help support your program, help support your brand, help get the word out there. We need more feel-good missions that we can be a part of. And you've supplied us with one. So just wanted to say thanks, Josh, for your time today. Thanks so much for being on the Think Great Experience.
Thank you, Erik.